Joining me now, Lieutenant General Richard Newton, retired U.S. Air Force Assistant Vice Chief of Staff and Safety Investigator and NewsNation Senior National Security Contributor, and Tom Maddox, CEO of Underwater Forensic Investigators and co-pilot of a 2005 Titanic expedition. Thanks very much to both of you for coming on the show. General Newton, let me start with you. What does it tell us that the Navy appears to have known since Sunday that the vessel may have imploded? What more do we now understand as a result of that?
Well, good evening, Dan. It tells us that there are, with this unified command that the Rear Admiral was speaking to at the top of the story, you've got United States Navy, U.S. Coast Guard, you got Canadian forces, you've got French, and even I believe there are some United Kingdom forces there. But all elements with capabilities were brought to bear for this search and rescue mission. Regarding Sunday, it appears that, and one thing the U.S. Navy has better than any country in the world, better than any military, and that is exquisite, what we call marine domain awareness. They know what's going on above the waters, they know what's going on below the waters, and so forth. And so those capabilities with that acoustic data and that analysis of acoustic data that the Navy had certainly been tracking, brought that to bear with the incident commander on Sunday. It's reported that about an hour, 45 minutes or so after the Titan actually started its free dive there, that was informed, and they informed the Coast Guard, who was lead for this search and rescue. And so that informed the Coast Guard, informed certainly the commander of the search and rescue to narrow the scope, if you will, of the search and rescue mission. It wasn't definitive, as I understand it, specifically, but it certainly narrowed the scope of that.
And what do you make of the comment that the information was considered with the compilation of additional acoustic data provided by other partners, and the decision was made to continue our mission as a search and rescue effort? What does that mean to you?
Just that there are other partners, I'm sure, that could have come from U.S. capabilities, but also international capabilities with our friends and allies and so forth. And so it adds to this. It's like a very serious and difficult puzzle. I don't want to make light of this situation, but other bits of analysis and information are then brought to bear, and that's how they move forward with their search and rescue. Note that they did not give up on the search and rescue, right? Because it wasn't as definitive as perhaps maybe some in the media are playing here, but nonetheless determined, and I believe, and this is pure conjecture on my part, that the scope of the investigation or the exploration of the incident and so forth really took a turn on Sunday when we had this acoustic data brought forth.
Mr. Maddox, based on everything that we know today, do you have any sense of what the likely cause was of the implosion?
No, I don't. I would hate to speculate without collection of further data and putting the pieces of the puzzle together. It would totally be speculation, but it appears it's pretty apparent that it was a catastrophic failure, like the Navy had stated. It sounded like an explosion or implosion. It could be either one, but most likely an implosion. And this would happen from either a breach in the hull, or it could be from a failure of the hull itself due to flexation of the hull due to pressure. And it could also be due to a leak from a bulkhead fitting that, there are ports that wires and controls go through the fitting, through the hull. And if they even have the slightest breach, the outside extreme pressure will rush in so quickly to fill the void or the vacuum within the cabin that it would be an immediate implosion.
Are these the sorts of things that, any of the things that you've just mentioned, right? Are these the sorts of things that a diligent examination of the vessel before going down would uncover, or are some of them simply unavoidable?
Well, certainly, just like an aircraft, captain and crew can do a walk around and do a visual inspection, but that doesn't prevent catastrophes from happening. So I don't know that necessarily everything would be visible or available to be seen. Some of these things are obviously unforeseen. So I'm sure it can be surprisingly fast.
And General, what happens now in terms of the recovery effort? How much resources are they going to devote to this? Are they going to try to ensure that they can find the bodies, et cetera?
Well, I'm sure there's going to be all resources that are going to be available, not only from the United States, but as I mentioned, our international partners, specifically Canada, perhaps France, and the United Kingdom. But what Mr. Maddox says in terms of conjecture and us trying to, the event is only just a couple days or so old, trying to come up with what happened here. This is going to take weeks, if not months, maybe a year of investigation.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.